Now, the modified food's a big thing too, because we know we're being modified with the food we eat, of course. If you want to re-engineer humans, you simply re-engineer what they're eating. And they found that too. They found maybe often in the third generation of even rats and mice and other mammals have tested their foods on. They have all these genetic defects, and generally they're sterile by the third generation. But this is a mandate to bring down population and to have you die off early. They don't want to pay pensioners anymore. They'd prefer you die on the dot at the time when you turn 65. What time is it, Jock? Well, it's just turned, down you go. They'd love that, and then there's no pension to take out. And mind you, they'll make you pay pension money all along, then the government can grab it. It's much more efficient that way. They know they've got better ways of spending it than you spending it on yourself. So the modified broccoli is coming to a place near you, and it's launching it first in the UK supermarkets as a testing ground before they're inevitably introduced into the United States, Canada, and Australia. And they won't tell you, of course, what they've put in it. There's always foreign genes out of all kinds of weird stuff that they put into it that was never there in nature, of course. And they tell you how healthy it is. It's going to help reduce bowel cancer, they tell you, which is absolute lies, because it'll cause all kinds of other cancers. Or maybe they mean they'll die of a different cancer before you'll get bowel cancer if you eat this stuff. Anyway, it's a big article on this. I'll put it up for you. And how they're rolling ahead. There's going to be nothing eventually that you can find to eat that's natural unless you follow some chimpanzee somewhere, maybe in some far-off land. Otherwise, you've had it, folks, because it's about greed and profit and killing you off. And I really mean that. I really do believe it's all part of the depopulation agenda, because cancer, when I was small, was pretty well standardized into about 5 categories. Some countries had no cancers at all of certain types. Other kinds would. Japan at one time had more stomach cancer. Scotland had you didn't know what bowel cancer was at the time because they weren't eating any modified food at that time. And everything's utterly changed in my lifetime with the processed foods, and it really sped up because of all the GM food that came down the pike.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
Hi folks, I'm back cutting through the matrix and just talking about how the food's all been modified and cancer is just gone through the roof. And there's no big worry about it at the top. They don't do any investigations into why, because they know why. That's why they don't do it. Believe you me, if something happened to the human population that was outside of something they were doing, they'd be in there like a shot to find out what was going on. But no, cancer is skyrocketing, infertility is skyrocketing, yawn. It's all done on purpose, folks, because that is the big agenda. Lots of world meetings held every year about depopulation. And there's too many people. Then you had Rockefeller come out with the Lucky Gene Club and others talking about the need now for a rapid depopulation instead of just preventative measures and abortions worldwide that we all fund by our tax money. No, they want rapid depopulation. So I'll let you figure that one out for yourselves. Now, we also get attacks from so many different directions. Most folk, of course, are oblivious to the various electronic warfare techniques that have been going on for an awful long time. And the HAARP projects, the HAARP projects have been going on for a long time too. From the 70s at least that we know of, starting off with Russia and other countries kicking in with their own projects. And I think Canada was one of the first countries to publish the fact that the woodpecker signal, as they called it at the time, was blocking out ham radio signals. And these are modulation frequencies that were literally designed to tap your brain. It came around the same pulse waves as your brain, basically. And there were forms of controlling or depressing you or confusing you or whatever. And now all the countries jumped onto it, and they've created the big one in Alaska. They've got other ones in Australia. It's still owned by the US, though, and ones across the world. And I think at Stanford University, there's a whole bunch of the people, organizations working within the university across the country for points on the HAARP project. Now, There's an article here, it goes back to 2006 and ties in with quite a lot of stuff that's happening today. Dr. Paul A. Bernhardt is called, a senior research physicist in the Plasma Physics Division at Naval Research Laboratory, has been elevated as Fellow of the Institute for Electrical and Electronics Engineers. And then it goes on about, so you see this BS degree, which is, that BS is BS, isn't it? And electrical engineering from the University of California, Santa Barbara in 1971, master's degree, blah, 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 blah. And then he joined the NRL in 1987 as a research physicist in the Plasma Physics Division, promoted to his current position as senior research physicist in 1990. His research interests have been primarily in the areas of ionospheric modification with his high-power radio waves and chemical releases. Okay, the folk who thought that, all the spraying's all pie in the sky. These are just condensation trails. And all the rest who've been watching the sky for years, their whole lives, says these aren't condensation trails, they're not disappearing. So here it goes, ionospheric modification with high-power radio waves, that's your HARP project, and chemical releases and satellite-based radio beacon sensing of space plasmas. Dr. Bernhardt used the high-power HF facility near Arequipa, it says Puerto Rico, and Nizhny Novgorod, Russia, from 1985 to 1999 to record the first CCD images of artificial aurora. Artificial aurora. This is chemical made with HARP, folks. Artificial aurora at mid-latitudes. These images illuminated natural and artificial irregularities in the ionosphere. He served on the Arecibo Users and Science Advisory Council from 92 to 94. Dr. Bernard is currently sponsored for ionospheric modification research by the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program in Alaska. Dr. Bernhard has pioneered the use of chemical releases to study the ionosphere. His ionospheric modification experiments have been monitored with incoherent scatter as radar ISR systems around the world and with in situ plasma probes provided by NRL's Plasma Physics Division. In 1992, NRL ionospheric focused heating experiment combined chemical release and high-power radio wave technology to produce the highest level of plasma turbulence ever measured with the Arecibo ISR. Dr. Bernard's conducted over 8 experiments from 85 to the present using the Space Shuttle Orbital Maneuver Subsystem, OMS, engines to modify the ionosphere with high-speed exhaust injections into the upper atmosphere. The results of these dedicated engine bursts have been recorded using the VHF and UHF radars at Arecibo, Puerto Rico, Kwajalein, Marshall Islands, Millstone Hill, Massachusetts, and Jicamarca, Peru. Currently, Bernhardt is a principal investigator for the Charged Aerosol Release Experiment Program. It's called CARE, folk, to take care of you. Charged Aerosol Release Experiment Program, designed to study the scattering of radar from electrons in the vicinity of charged particles that form artificial dusty plasmas. What do you think artificial dusty plasmas means, folks? Anyway, it goes on and on about computerized ionospheric tomography, etc., etc., etc. So it's interesting. It was around that time that this came out too. Remember that as well. U.S. Navy to conduct massive atmospheric experimental tests. And that was from News with Views, 2009. In an article in Spacecom, NASA rocket to create clouds Tuesday by Clara Motzkowitz, the staff writer, September 14, 2009, was unexpectedly forwarded to me today. It says, according to the article, a rocket experiment set to launch Tuesday aims to create artificial clouds at the outermost layer of Earth's atmosphere. Remember those luminescent clouds? Oh, it's a brand new phenomenon. And then they brought in all the experts, the PR, the damage control guys. Oh, well, don't worry about them. They've always been there. You just haven't noticed them before. Rubbish. These things were glowing. This is this project here. This last guy was involved in. The project called the Charged Aerosol Release Experiment, CARE, once again, same one. This is really essentially at the boundary of space, said Wayne Scales, scientist at Virginia Tech, who will study the physics of the artificial dust cloud as it's released. CARE is slated to launch Tuesday between 7:30 and 7:57 p.m. from NASA's Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia. Now, they'd already done it before that year. They'd been doing it as far back, they've been doing it since 1998, pretty well, continuously. Anyway, Care will release its aluminum oxide dust particles. This is an official announcement. Aluminum oxide dust particles a bit higher than that, then let them settle back down to a lower altitude. What the Care experiment hopes to do is create an artificial dust layer, Professor Scales told Space.com. Hopefully it's a creation in a controlled sense which will allow scientists to study different aspects of it, the turbulence generated on the inside, the distribution of dust particles, and such. Care is a project, it says, of the Naval Research Laboratory and the Department of Defense Space Test Program. The spacecraft will launch aboard a NASA 4-stage Black Brant 12 suborbital sounding rocket. Researchers will track the Care dust cloud for days or even months to study its behavior and development over time. If Care cannot launch Tuesday, blah, blah, they'll try again, and so on and so on. Anyway, it says here, they've made a decision to conduct one or more or an atmospheric test in order to create an aluminum oxide dust cloud without the permission and, for the most part, the knowledge of the citizens of the United States. I'd say the planet, for that matter. These aluminum oxide particles will eventually return to Earth, polluting the air, water, and soils. Interestingly, Monsanto came up with that aluminum-resistant plant, all of a sudden. What was the need for that all of a sudden, after all these years of getting dosed with this stuff? The test may damage the various atmospheric boundaries that protect life on Earth. No one has any idea what damage this dust cloud and the testing on the dust cloud may do to our agriculture, climate, human health, or the amount of infrared and UV radiation reaching the Earth. So anyway, and they're already using this, and they've been using it ever since. I'll put this link up tonight as well. And then this article, it came out too, I said 2008 on this one. Strange clouds spotted at the edge of space. Strange clouds. A weirdly wonderful sight appeared to astronauts aboard the International Space Station this summer. Thin blue clouds hovering in the boundary between Earth's atmosphere and the void. Exactly where they're going to place all this stuff. The noctilucent or night-shining clouds are an altitude of 47 to 53 miles, where meteors and bright aurora lights are not uncommon, and the atmosphere gives way to the blackness of space. The clouds remain a scientifically baffling phenomenon for more than 120 years after their discovery. It's lovely, says Gary Thomas, an atmospheric scientist at the University of Colorado, after looking at a photo taken from the space station, and it shows just how these clouds really are, at the very edge of space, That's how they put BS over to the public. That's why they have BS after their names, these guys, No kidding. That's how they do it to us, isn't it? They give us some rubbish like this. And people say, oh, isn't that amazing? Noctilucent clouds. And then you get a TV special on it too. Oh. And it's all fun. But it's all to hide something that's very devious and pretty nasty to you and your system. It really is disgusting what's going on. Disgusting. And people are protesting the visible things you see, like corruption, but they've no idea what's been done to them through inoculations or food or even the stuff they add to their water or what they're made to eat because they can't get anything else. Another article I put up tonight too is a flu vaccine pushed despite the nerve disease link. The H1N1 virus scourge is in full force and so is the push. What is emphasized amongst government and medical communities is a strong link between the vaccine and a rare debilitating nerve disease, Guillain-Barré syndrome, and death link is well known, but that doesn't keep doctors from administering them, even though 50% of doctors are refusing them. The HFA has reported this data link 2 years ago, as well as with other vaccines such as, this is Menactra, which is pushed for babies. So I'll put this link up as well. You understand, they know what's going to happen when they give you this kind of stuff because they've tested it all on the animals for years. They know what they're doing. And it's almost like all the companies that are in it they're guaranteed money, these big vaccine companies, because now government's going to promise them they'll keep buying so many millions of doses every year. What a business to be in. And now they're using fetal tissue and telling you it's good for you to grow the disease on. And the disease, these viruses aren't a normal virus. They're synthetically modified. They're synthetic viruses, like they do in warfare, And that's why years later you can do an autopsy and you'll find these viruses still in their body and tell what lab it came from. Ah dear, if only the people understood what was really done to them. Eh? And across the